countries should also try to provide scholarships, training programs. I would like to ask the question, what do you think? In which digitized world do we live in 10 years?
What steps should African countries take to encourage local development that is tailored for Africans and African challenges?
Yeah, so I would say
Dennis-Kenji Kipker
with a
is a
unique
renowned
focus
professor
on
and
IT
speaker.
compliance,
As an
crucial
expert on
knowledge on the
digitalization,
intersection of law and
Specializing
Kipker
digital
is a
technology.
sought-after keynote speaker,
digital resilience,
helping
and
organizations
cybersecurity.
navigate the
His
complexities
insights
of
shape
big
the
data,
future of
open
safe
data,
and
and
innovative digital
cybercrime.
practices.
Today, we are diving into the future of Africa's AI and cybersecurity with the latest development from DeepSeek, OpenAI, China, America, and the AI landscape in general. Joining me to discuss this, to break all this down, is one of the leading professors, or one of the leading cybersecurity experts in the world, Professor Dr. Dennis-Kenji Kipker, who is the Director of Cyber Intelligence in Frankfurt. He joined me to break all this with you here on CACS Weekly, and we're going to tell you what you need to do and what the future of AI holds for Africa and what we should expect in the next 5 to 10 years when it comes to cybersecurity and AI. You don't want to miss any part of this podcast. Stay tuned as I bring to you Professor Dennis-Kenji Kipker.
Let's talk dreams, let's talk gold. Stories of success that never get old. Entrepreneurs rising, breaking the mold. On CACS Weekly, the future unfold. CACS Weekly, shining so bright.
So thank you, Professor, once again for joining us. Let's go to the main topic right now in the world. DeepSeek AI model is causing headline all over the world. So how do you see China's AI advancement reshaping global AI dominance, and how could this impact not just Africa but the world in general? Let's start with the world, then we'll come down to Africa.
Yeah. So DeepSeek's very impressive AI model. So this is a clear indicator, in my opinion, of China's very rapid progress in the field of artificial intelligence.
So I noticed most of you haven't yet subscribed to our channel. Please click the subscribe button if you're finding any value in what we're discussing here on this podcast. Back to the show.
And this progress, along with some other Chinese AI initiatives, has a potential, in my opinion, to significantly reshape this global AI landscape that we've seen. Because for a long time, for decades, the narrative was that AI has been heavily dominated by Western, particularly American companies and research. And now we've seen that China's presents a viable alternative and a potentially also a leading force in future AI development. And this shift in global AI dominance could, in my opinion, have profound implications on AI development and use in the world, of course, but also in Africa, because as we see it in many other countries, AI definitely opens up new existing and exciting opportunities. So access to advanced and potentially more affordable Chinese AI technologies, because what is special about DeepSeek AI is that it's an open source tool, could accelerate development across the continent in crucial sectors. For example, imagine AI-powered solutions being readily available for healthcare diagnostics in remote areas, or possibly regarding personalized education platforms tailored to some local needs, or sophisticated agricultural tools that optimize crop yields, for example.
Yeah. So we see also OpenAI now accelerating its models, releasing new models just to catch up with DeepSeek. Do you think this competition is not healthy, or let's say, do you think it's moving so fast and possibly breaking ethical concerns or causing ethical concerns in the AI development?
Yeah. So to say, this rapid pace of AI models really being released, driven by competition between companies like OpenAI or DeepSeek, raises definitely concerns about whether innovation is outpacing considerations of cybersecurity, data privacy, ethical implications. But while competition can be a powerful engine definitely for progress, the pressure to release increasingly powerful models quickly also could lead to corners being cut in crucial areas. So we are talking about thorough testing and evaluation of these AI models, and we have seen it last week regarding DeepSeek. There was a major data breach regarding data that had been typed into this AI machinery. So we need definitely testing and evaluation, and this is essential for identifying and mitigating potential security vulnerabilities and also biases in AI results, wrong AI results. And this, what I currently see, is being sacrificed in the race to be the first to the market. And this could definitely also lead to the result in the deployment of AI systems with unforeseen security flaws, making them, for example, susceptible to malicious attacks, data breaches. And furthermore, the rush to develop more advanced AI could also mean that insufficient attention is paid to the ethical dimension of these technologies. So, as I mentioned, issues such as algorithmic bias, data privacy, misuse that can all be overlooked, for example, also when it comes to tampering elections or public opinion. And this can currently not be foreseen.
Yeah, right. So we see companies like ByteDance now investing heavily in AI models, and this is impacting not only China, but also other Africa countries. How do you see this? What would be the implications of these AI models advancing in Africa?
Yeah, so ByteDance significant investments in artificial intelligence, also coupled with this broader push by Chinese tech companies into the whole AI arena, which was mostly dominated by US companies, strongly suggests, in my opinion, that they are poised to become major players, also in Africa's tech space. So, and in my opinion, there are several factors that contribute to this potential. So Chinese companies have definitely a proven track record of rapid technological development deployment, often at a scale and pace that is unmatched elsewhere. Yeah. And this is also because China does not have so much tech regulation, that is also to mention. And these Chinese companies, they also adapt at navigating emerging markets, and they have demonstrated a willingness to invest heavily in infrastructure and also local partnerships abroad.
Yeah.
And in Africa, where there's a growing demand for digital solutions across all sectors, because Africa is in many points very digitized, in some points also more than, for example, European Union countries. These Chinese AI companies could offer competitive and potentially more affordable technologies when they are trying currently to address the market. And this could be areas like mobile payment, for example, e-commerce, and even digitized public services. So the implications here will definitely be multifaceted.
So we talk about ethical concerns in the previous question. Can you give us example of what kind of ethics can be broken with AI? Because for the layman who doesn't know anything about AI, he would be like, okay, I'm using it. There is nothing like ethical concerns for me. So what kind of ethical concerns would you be worried about?
Yeah, so AI is being used in a lot of different sectors. So we are talking about governmental sector, education sector, critical infrastructures, companies, and also private people are using AI. And we are using it, but we do not talk so much about possibly wrong results, possibly biased results of AI. And this is something that has to be considered, because we always use AI to facilitate our everyday life, but we do not think about the possible results coming from the AI use. And it might be the case that currently we see that everyone uses AI and there might be some faults that are not seen at the moment, but later on, several years later, there might be some, for example, false information in public information databases, or when it comes to electrotechnical engineering, there might be wrong information in some information systems leading to further faults. And this is what I call ethical implications. So we have to think about when we want to use AI, for which cases we want to use AI. We really have to double check the results, and we have to think about, is this really a use case where we want to use AI, or should we use natural intelligence instead of AI, or combining both together?
So, Professor, do you think Africa is ready to regulate or integrate AI into helping its people and businesses across the continent?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. So, in my opinion, the exponential advancement of AI models both presents both immense opportunities and significant challenges for Africa on one hand, particularly regarding regulation and integration. But while there's a growing awareness of AI's potential, the continent's preparedness to effectively regulate and integrate AI remains still a very complex question. And this is not just a technical question, it's also a political, a legal question. And many African nations are still developing their digital infrastructure and also their regulatory frameworks. For example, when it comes to cybersecurity, there are definitely some countries that have cybersecurity regulation, but others still do not have any kind of cybersecurity and privacy regulation. And this is the same with AI. So there's a risk that outdated or inadequate regulations in African countries could stifle innovation or fail to address these ethical implications we've talked about and societal implications of AI. So we also see that when we want to use AI, we need to understand it deeply or more deeply than ever before. We cannot just use it. So there is still a lack of expertise in many countries in AI and related fields. So, for example, people who are AI engineers, policymakers that know about the AI, that understand the complexities of these technologies, and, for example, develop appropriate regulation. I see here a lot of open space that has currently not been addressed so far when it comes to AI regulation.
Yeah. So, Professor, you can see, as you said, AI-driven threats are increasing, not only across Africa, globally. So, how can African countries or African nations develop cybersecurity frameworks to mitigate these AI-powered cyber attacks?
Yeah, I would say that this is not a typical African problem. I would say that this is a general problem all throughout the world, because we have seen that the rise of AI-driven cyber threats has been high since the first version of ChatGPT was published in 2022. And this necessitates a proactive and more multifaceted approach for an effective cybersecurity framework development, not only in African nations, but everywhere. So recognizing that AI can not only be used for defense, but also for increasingly sophisticated attacks, African nations must definitely prioritize building robust and adaptable cybersecurity infrastructures. And this includes, of course, also investing in an AI-powered cybersecurity solutions, because you cannot only use AI for cyber attacks, but also for cybersecurity. But will take money here. And you can use, for example, AI to detect and respond to cybersecurity threats in real time, effectively countering AI-driven attacks with AI-driven defenses. That is also possible. And in my opinion, it is most crucial that African nations are now developing national cybersecurity strategies in every country, also addressing AI, or possibly also tailored to the unique challenges posed by AI. And what is at least of the same importance is that international collaboration and information sharing and also sharing of best practices is very essential, because these cyber threats, they transcend national borders. They do not stop there. And African nations should actively participate in this global cybersecurity initiatives and establish partnerships with countries all over the world.
So, Professor, many African nations, not only African, actually, most nations globally rely on foreign or Western or Chinese AI models. What steps should African countries take to encourage local development that is tailored for African and to Africans and African challenges?
Yeah, so I would say, firstly, it would be important to investing in education and capacity building in local communities, which, in my opinion, is paramount. And this also involves supporting universities with AI studies, to introduce special research institutions in the capitals of the country, in developing AI-focused curricula for students. It would also be fostering collaboration between academia and industry, because it's not only about development, it's also about use cases of artificial intelligence. And countries should also try to provide scholarships, training programs for local AI talents. And I think, secondly, what is at least as most important or of same importance is creating some kind of supportive ecosystem for AI startups and entrepreneurs in the country. So this can be possibly achieved through establishing incubators, innovation accelerators, providing access to public governmental funding, mentorship programs, and possibly also promoting network opportunities. And governments, they play definitely a key role by developing national AI strategy that prioritizes this local development in each country and provides also certain kinds of incentive for companies to invest in African AI research and development.
Yeah. So you see, a lot of governments are actually investing more in AI models. Should African countries focus more or prioritize more on AI innovation or cybersecurity, or do both of them go hand in hand?
I think they go hand in hand. So you cannot have AI without cybersecurity, and mostly you cannot have cybersecurity without having AI. So investing in AI innovation without a corresponding focus on cybersecurity is akin to building a house without any kind of locks. So it becomes vulnerable to exploitation in this case. Yeah. And as AI systems become more prevalent and integrated into everyday life up to critical infrastructure, the potential for malicious use and cyber attacks increases significantly. And we already can see it everywhere in the world, that the rise of AI has also been followed by a rise of cybersecurity threats. And therefore, in my opinion, cybersecurity must be a fundamental component of any kind of AI development strategy in any country, and not just an afterthought.
So, talking about cybersecurity, recently the Interpol arrested some cybercrime networks in Africa. What does this tell us about the continent's cybersecurity weaknesses?
Yeah, so I think you mean the Operation Serengeti.
Yes, Serengeti.
From Interpol, which was really worldwide known, and this also exposed certain significant cybercrime networks operating within Africa. But this is not a special case. We have cybercrime networks operating in any country of the world. For example, also in Germany, where we had this week a strong investigation result from the Federal Police Department, where also several cyber criminals had been arrested. But of course, successful operations such as Operation Serengeti from Interpol, that this definitely reveals that we have several key cybersecurity weaknesses also across the African continent. And the operation's success in uncovering these networks underscores the fact that cyber criminals have already started exploiting vulnerabilities in Africa's digital infrastructure, and also often taking advantage of limited cybersecurity resources, inadequate or insufficient legal frameworks, and also of cross-border legal collaboration. And in my opinion, the presence of sophisticated criminal networks suggests, from a certain perspective, that local law enforcement agencies may lack training, technology, and resources to actively combat cybercrime, particularly when it involves transnational operations and emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence.
All right, Professor, we spoke about investment, and currently African government investment in cybersecurity is actually low. But how do you think the government, what does the government need to do to attract more investment into, more funding into building more digital resilience?
I think this would consider, this would need some kind of concerted effort on multiple fronts. So firstly, in my opinion, demonstrating a clear return on investment in cybersecurity is very crucial, because this is a topic of the future. And this can be achieved, for example, by showcasing successful cybersecurity initiatives in local countries, quantifying financial losses avoided through effective cybersecurity measures in companies, also possibly highlighting the positive impact on business continuity and investor confidence, because cybersecurity is some kind of trust. It's about data privacy. It's about functioning products. And when you can prove that you have integrated cybersecurity in your company, this can be a unique selling point for your products. And secondly, in my opinion, it's about fostering a more mature cybersecurity market. So this involves the supporting of the growth of local cybersecurity companies, possibly encouraging international players to invest into the region and develop a skilled cybersecurity workforce. And this is the same that we have seen with AI, because we need more people doing education, training, study in new emerging disruptive technologies. And this is a task that has to be fulfilled by the governments by creating effective and adequate policy strategy.
So what can African government learn from cybersecurity policies in EU, the US, and China? And should they create their own unique approach, or should they just copy paste from those countries?
Yeah, I think copy paste would not be needed, and it is to say that the EU, the US, and China are very different. They have their own strategies. They have very different goals, and it is a task of the African states, of course, to ultimately craft their own unique approach, tailored to their specific context, because economy is different, society is very different. So one-to-one copy and paste is not possible, in my opinion. And the EU, for example, the EU has a very strong emphasis on data protection and individual rights, for example, with the so-called European Data Protection Law, the GDPR. And this can also be used to inform how African nations can safeguard citizens in the digital age, because AI also uses a lot of data. The US, on the other hand, they have some kind of more market-driven approach. So they have a stronger focus on public-private partnerships in developing industry standards. And this is also important because we see that innovation does not only come from state authorities, it mostly comes directly out of the industries.
Yeah.
And China, as a third part, has a very strong emphasis on national security and government control. This can also be interesting, for example, when it comes to the digital protection of critical infrastructures or digital national security. So in my opinion, it would be advisable that each country picks out the best of each regulation and see what it is needed regarding their own society, their own economic development.
Yeah. So, Professor, in Africa, fintech, financial technology is actually dominant. It's like every African country uses fintech easily to make transactions on the back, but also cyber fraud and cyber crime when it comes to financial crimes is also a rising concern in Africa. How can financial institutions protect users more effectively?
Yeah, so this is also a very difficult question. So, of course, we have this growing threat of cyber fraud in the very booming and fintech and mobile banking sector, which is very strong in African countries. I think those companies need to invest heavily in a robust cybersecurity infrastructure. So that might include advanced fraud detection systems, possibly also powered by AI systems. This requires multi-factor authentication for users, for identification, for transactions, and also real-time transaction monitoring by these companies. For example, when you have high amounts that are shifted from one person to another, this might lead to some kind of fraud. And these systems should also be constantly updated to stay ahead of evolving cyber criminal tactics, because they evolve from day to day. And secondly, I think it's the task of the public authorities to educate users about cybersecurity best practices in the fintech and online banking sector. And for example, when it comes to strong password hygiene, raising awareness about phishing scams and social engineering tactics, and educating also the users on how to identify and report suspicious activity. So what to do when I think that my account is compromised. And this is something people should always take into account when they use digital technologies. They facilitate everything, but there are also certain risks, and people must be aware of these risks more than they had been in the past.
All right, Professor, you've worked for the African Center of Cyber Law and Cybercrime Prevention. Based on your experience, what are the top cybersecurity policy changes that Africa needs right now?
Yeah, I would say firstly, the harmonization of cybercrime legislation across the continent is crucial. Like we had in the European Union, to have unified cybercrime regulations, to have unified cybersecurity best practices, because disparities in laws and enforcement capabilities hinder cross-border collaboration and allow cybercriminals to exploit jurisdictional loopholes. And we see this in the European Union, because in the European Union, a lot of regulations have been unified in the last decades, whereas most cybercriminals that do business in the European Union come from countries outside, for example, from India, where they know that there is no law which has criminal offenses. And there are some model laws also in Africa, for example, like the Malabo Convention. They should be adopted and implemented consistently. And as I mentioned before, the third part, and possibly also one of the most important parts, is that we need a strong investment in a capacity building. So this also includes not only training of researchers, but also of law enforcement authorities and judicial officials in cybercrime investigation and prosecution.
Yeah. So AI so far has been solving real world challenges. We saw in Kenya, where with MC2 Kenya, which they use AI to detect deforestation. What are some other AI driven innovation you've seen that can make an impact in Africa?
Yeah, for example, the healthcare sector, AI is being used to diagnose diseases like malaria, tuberculosis more rapidly and possibly also more accurately. That would be one case. And this could be used in certain kind of remote areas where you do not have enough access to specialists. As I mentioned before, in agriculture, I see really strong use cases because AI can help farmers to optimize their crop yields by analyzing soil conditions, weather patterns, and also pest activity, and possibly also in education, as I mentioned. So where we could integrate AI-powered platforms that are personalized learning experience for students. And this can also be used in areas where the access to knowledge is not that fast or not that easy possible.
Talking about knowledge, Professor, education, and digital skills gap remains the first challenge in Africa when it comes to AI development. What should universities, governments, and tech companies, or how can they play a role in preparing the next generation for an AI-driven economy?
Yeah, so universities definitely should play a crucial role by integrating AI and related subjects like data science, machine learning into their curricula. And they should also focus on developing practical hands-on skills through projects, internship, collaborations with industry where AI is being used. Governments, they need to create enabling policies that support digital literacy and skills development all throughout the society. And this, again, includes investing in infrastructure, providing funding for new educational programs, creating frameworks for accreditation and certification, and also tech companies. They should have investments also into the African countries because they play a very important, vital role by partnering with universities to offer training programs and providing access, for example, to computational resources.
So we know so far Microsoft is training about some 1 million South Africans on AI and cybersecurity. How effective are these programs in closing the digital divide in Africa, and what more can be done? I know you've spoken about building more infrastructure and government doing more, but how effective do you think these kind of programs are?
Yeah, I think they are one first step to get into more and more digitized society dealing with AI and cybersecurity. And it can also be a significant step towards bridging this digital divide we currently see, which is growing stronger. But frankly speaking, the effectiveness of these initiatives needs to be assessed in a context. So while such programs can definitely equip individuals with valuable tech skills, their impact is limited if other crucial factors are not addressed. So just by saying we educate 1 million people, there's nothing said about the quality, for example, of this education. And access to technology and reliable internet connectivity remains really still a major hurdle for many people. And without these foundational elements, training programs alone cannot fully close this digital gap, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, Professor, in the next 5 years, what are the biggest AI and cybersecurity trends you think Africans should be preparing for?
Yeah, firstly, I would say the increasing sophistication of AI-powered cyber attacks will require advanced threat detection and response mechanism, also in Africa. And because AI will be used by both attackers and defenders, leading to some kind of AI arms race that we currently see. Secondly, the rise of deepfakes and AI-generated misinformation will pose a significant threat to every society, but also to the social stability and democratic processes in Africa. Thirdly, in my opinion, the rapid growth of IoT devices, which are also used in Africa, will expand the attack surface, making it crucial to secure these devices and network they are connected to. Fourthly, increasing reliance on cloud computing, which is also upcoming with AI, will necessitate robust cloud security strategies and data protection measures. And finally, these ethical implications that we already talked about several times during this podcast of AI will become even more prominent, requiring very clear guidelines and regulation to ensure fairness, transparency, and also accountability of AI systems.
Yeah, we know AI has been biased about Africa and African history, but yeah, Professor, we have a tradition in this podcast whereby we try to share knowledge from one guest to another. So our previous guest left a question for you. I'm going to read it from my phone now. He said, you've been breathing air, enjoying Mother Nature's gift. What are you giving back to Mother Nature?
Yeah, I think from my perspective as a professor, it's about giving back knowledge. So trying to share as much knowledge as you can with a lot of different people. And I think knowledge is really a great gift because knowledge allows you to make good and right decisions. So that would be my answer to this question.
All right. So for you're going to ask the next guest also a simple question or a hard question, so the person can also crack his brain to get some answers. So what question would you like to ask our next guest?
I would like to ask the question, what do you think? In which digitized world do we live in 10 years?
In 10 years, Thank you so much, Professor Kipker. It's been an incredible and actually insightful conversation with you. Thank you for sharing your expertise in AI and cybersecurity on CACS Weekly. And our listeners, thank you also for joining. Thank you so much, Professor. It's the end of the podcast. Bye-bye.
Let's talk dreams, let's talk gold. Stories of success that never get old. Entrepreneurs rising, breaking the mold. On CACS Weekly, the future unfolds. CACS Weekly, shining so bright.